Content warning. The following show contains smoking, some potty mouth language, discussions of fictitious violence, and a few other things that might make some folks feel seen. Hopefully, you're not being attacked. I'm letting you know you're not being attacked, but hopefully you won't feel like you're being attacked. Either way, viewer discretion is advised. Well, we were on a roll. Yeah, we were on a roll, and we gonna tell them about it. So, you should start the music. Yeah, I probably should. What is going on today? This is Silver Grade, the Cinematic Sorcerer, coming at you from the Wizard's Tower. And welcome to the dark side of the room. This is the show where we talk about a great many things. We talk about games, we talk about life, we talk about how games affect our lives, and how our lives affect our games. I know that sounds kind of but all that other jazz. So, thank you guys for showing up. Thank you for being here. And if you guys want to get a hold of us, all you gotta do is pull up your keyboard and type in gmail.com. You can also reach out to us over on Twitter and Instagram under the same thing, on TikTok at BidP, and again, if you're on Facebook, all you gotta do is join Deckers on the Book, because that's our Facebook group and all that jazz. I feel so silly today. I mean, seriously, guys, I thought I started the show on time. I had everything lined up and all that stuff. I did my little Muppet dance, and I started monologuing, and I didn't push the record button. So I've been talking for like the past 10 minutes, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm not live. I'm like, no wonder there's nobody here. So with all that being said, thank you guys for showing up. I'm glad that you're here. So, today's show, Learning in Steps, is a really important thing that I wanted to accomplish. But as I do all the time with this channel, let me give you guys a little bit of context. Now, as you guys know, I have been learning Warhammer 40k, all right? And even my sister is like, I am surprised that you were going for that game. And I'm like, ooh, you barely been back in my life for like 6 or 7 months, and you've heard me talk all the crap there is to talk about that game. But again, they impressed me with the indexes and combat patrol and the try before you buy model, and that's all I ever wanted from them. So as you guys know, I have spent weeks learning how to play the game and all that. And tonight, I had planned on having 5, 6, 7 friends over. Okay, more like 2 or 3. To teach them how to play 40k with my combat patrols. Because if you guys have been watching for the past few weeks, because we've been covering this all through July. I thought this was only going to be a week, but turns out it's going to be the whole month. But hopefully by the end of the month, I will be able to go to a friendly local gaming store and have a pickup game of Combat Patrol. This is what I'm hoping. As long as it's not a Games Workshop store, because I use a bunch of proxies. All right, that's how I roll. I'm sorry, guys. That's just what I do. But here's the thing. I'm just barely learning this game, and I'm going to be teaching this game. And if you guys are gamers, or if you guys are new to any kind of gaming hobby. I don't care if it's board games, RPGs, whatever. Okay. I've talked about this on the channel for years. The idea of dungeon master or teacher and all that stuff comes with this weight where the person you're teaching may, and I say may because everybody's different, and I don't really feel like seeing hashtag not all insert the blank, or fill in the blank here. But a lot of people that you're teaching something may have the expectation that you know every single little nuance, all right? And a lot of people may ask the question, well, why are you bothering teaching people? Why don't you just go and go to a game store and join a group? And I'll tell you guys, there's a couple of reasons for that. One, with this particular game, but this can be applied to a lot of different circumstances. Um, there may not be people at the game store that you go to. Why are you people calling me? Bill collectors. Gotta love them. There can be people at the game store that either don't play the game that you want to play, or they don't want to play the game that you want to play in a manner that you're comfortable with. Okay. Um, so, I mean, seriously, when I say you people, I mean bill collectors, because I love getting calls from Scam Likely. All right. So, what can we do about this particular thing? Well, I'm sorry to tell you guys. Here's the thing, and this is a real true thing. If you're rural, live in a trailer park, like me, live in the hood, there may not be a game store within reasonable distance for you to go to. All right. Sometimes you got to build your community from the friends that you already had that are willing to humor you with the with the thing that you're trying to get into. Okay, that's just reality of it. There may not be a store that's close enough that'll. Well, let me give you an example. I've learned how to play Warhammer 40K a bit, just a bit. All right, I've played one game, and I really don't ever plan on going beyond combat patrol. Partly because I would have to pick a faction and either repaint the models that I have or print up more models and really give support to that faction, right? And I haven't picked a faction. I have 13, soon to be 14, combat patrol proxy armies. And, I keep them around for instruction and stuff, but I have so many armies because every time I try and teach a game, it is unfailing that the people that I try and teach want to play a faction that I don't have. All right. Ain't no mountain high enough to keep them from getting to games, baby. Yeah, I know, Neon. I know. And if I recall, you told me once that you don't drive, so I get that. But here's the gig. Chances are, unless you're already part of a gaming group and you are catching up with them, if you were in my position of learning something new that's not popular where you are and you have to build a community, chances are you're going to have to teach the game. But teaching, as I've said hundreds of times on this channel, is a skill that has to be cultivated and practiced, okay? And let's be real, all right? If you're in Western civilization, you've gone to school for at least 5 years. I don't know how old my viewers are. But it's safe to say that most of my viewers are going to be at least in the 7th grade, all right? Or sorry, the 4th grade, because I'm counting kindergarten as 1 year. So kindergarten, 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th grade, So you've been in school for a little while, and hopefully you've learned how to be a student. But the ratio of students to teachers are pretty big. And that's and the reason for that is because teachers require special education, special training, special skill sets. Fortunately, I've studied some, but I'm not a certified teacher because I don't like administration or parents most of the time. Um, but that's neither here nor there. And so when I teach games, I take a look at stuff, and our boy Zan from the land of beer and cheese laughed when I said that 40K is so crunchy. I have chipped 4 teeth just learning the quick start rules. But what does that mean? That means that this game has a lot of crunch. It has a lot of moving components, a lot of different rules that come in at a lot of different times, a big lexicon and vocabulary. And all of that being said, it will be impossible to play a game of 40K perfectly without missing one rule or messing up a rule or making an error or a misinterpretation on your first game. It is totally impossible. And when I teach games, I don't even try. I don't even try to teach the people I'm teaching games every single bit of nuance that's there. Because this is something that every teacher knows. And if you guys are watching and you're a teacher, back me up. The best way to make sure that your student doesn't learn anything is to show them everything all at once. Okay? So what I like to have are instructive games. All right? Now, when I take a look, it's 100% possible if your opponent wipes your army out on turn 1. But will they understand stratagems? Will they understand desperate retreat? Will they understand deadly demise? Will they understand anti-air? Will they understand anti-infantry? Only if that stuff was on the board. This is what I'm talking about. You know? Maybe. It all depends. And who's to say, I mean, like real talk. A table wipe on the first game, I've seen it a couple of times. In fact, one of my favorite YouTube channels published a first-time combat patrol game that had a table wipe scenario today. I watched it this morning, and even they made a couple of errors with the rules that came out in the editing, you know. So nobody is going to get it 100% their very first time and all that jazz. It's just that's not a thing. So at the end of the day, never got a rule wrong because you never got to play. You guys need to stop trolling. I mean, serious. Do I have to expand the bridge? Is that what I got to do? Do I have to spend my magical fuel to widen the bridge so all of y'all can get under it? I mean, is that what I got to do? Now, so seriously though, so what's the solution to this? Well, what I do as a game teacher is I get the base essence of what the game I'm teaching is, okay? And most of the time, that comes out in the type of game it is, all right? I mean, seriously. We're looking at a mini war game. You have your miniatures. Check. War. Aha. What does war consist of? Well, most people think war consists of combat, but there's more to that. I mean, Sean Bean, before he died, in Lord of the Rings, you know, I have to be specific with that because real talk, it's Sean Bean. So if I said Sean Bean before he died, you'll be like, what movie? Said that war is young men fighting and old men talking. And he's not wrong. He's not incorrect in that assessment. However, so every mini war game or every game has the thing that it's there for. If it's tabletop role playing, a lot of people focus on the fighting and building up your character. A lot of people focus on the role play aspect. All depends on what you're coming down, but every single game that's ever been made has an essence to it, has what I call the game behind the game, all right? Or should I say the game beneath? Not the game behind, but the game beneath. The game beneath most tabletop war games is fighting. So in the fighting, you've got your minis, you got their names, you got their movement, and you got how they go pew pew and stab stab. Now, objectives, conditions, and all that other stuff, those are things that come on. But once you have the base thing, to teach a game, you strip away a lot of the nuances, but keep what makes the game fun. Okay? How do you pew pew and stab stab? How do you talk and convince? Okay? All good games are a balance of all these things. However, that balance isn't an even split on the front end. All right? And I gotta say, the company that I hate most of all in games really understood that. That's why the Combat Patrol index cards are different. They're trimmed down from the index cards of the same units in the main game. Like in with the Space Marines, they have the Oaths of Moment. In Combat Patrol, it lets you pick a model, and all of the models in your unit, when attacking that model, get to re-roll their attacks if they miss, and that's cool. In the main game, they get to re-roll their attacks and their damage. It is brutal. However, since Combat Patrol is smaller and it's been balanced to be much more new player friendly, they cut that ability in half. They kept the essence of Space Marines get to try again because they're blah, blah, blah. But at the end of the day, they left the essence of what those things can be. So when you're teaching a game, you have to figure out, let's see, in Warhammer Fantasy, that ability was called Hatred. Yeah, Hatred. That is one of my favorite words because I grew up listening to 1980s thrash metal, and Hatred was all over every album. Anyway, so when you're teaching a game, okay, to give every movement rule, every shooting rule, every rule, every stratagem, every shenanigan, every trick, every corner case, every single advantage or disadvantage is the best way to confuse the person that you're teaching. And as much as I hate to say it, this is the reason that Space Marines are in every single starter box for every single edition. Okay? They may have a lot of tricks and all that stuff, but at the end of the day, they're really good at pew pew stab stab. All right? This is what I call the Ken and Ryu effect, where every single fighting game has 4 characters that they base everything off of, and that is Ken and Ryu, or Sub-Zero and Scorpion. That's it. That's you get those 4 characters down, and I don't care if you're playing Tekken, Mortal Kombat, Street Fighter, whatever. You understand those characters, you can pretty much play any of those games. All right. So of course there's going to be people out there going, no, I know it's a corner case, but those characters have the most basic moves, guys. I mean, that's been scientifically researched. That's what's out there. All right. Okay, and we've got Neon giving ice cream flavors to every single faction in 40K. You do you, buddy. So yeah, that being the case, what are the sisters? Anyway, you'd better not say cherry. That would be rude. So, when you are planning on teaching games and all that stuff, it is super important to stay basic and to be willing to answer all the questions. Now, I feel I got to put this out there because I have a lot of friends that are kind of in this void. I'll accept that. Fish food slaps. I like that. Fish food, yeah, I'm with it. I have a lot of friends who are in this vapor lock because they want to play games, but they either have health problems or transportation problems. And they have this frustration because if they teach someone new, it's going to take that person a while to get up to the level that they want to play at. And real talk, that's true. But it won't take as long as one might think. Okay. Um, I'm a big fan of old teaching techniques, and I don't mean corporal punishment to force memorization. When I teach games, I do my best to give the people I'm teaching information that links up so that they can catch up to me as soon as possible and they can take what I teach them to surpass me. Because over the course of my years of teaching people how to play, I used to teach people how to play games and I used to teach them with my house rules, right? And the problem with that is that when they leave your house, um, then they end up playing against people that don't play under your house rules, and a lot of times they feel dumb. Okay, um, and it's kind of sad, but it's also very discouraging for them because they come back saying, "You didn't teach me how to play. You didn't teach me anything." Arr! Um, because there is a first day problem. And I say problem because the first day problem is something that is everywhere. Okay, like your first day in therapy, you get your therapist um, that tells you one or two things, and then a lot of people want to either go out there and psychoanalyze everyone or they think that they're cured. Um, your first day in martial arts, you go in and you expect to be able to kick the world's butt, and all you did was do push ups. First day of music school, if you're a drummer and you want to be like, and all you do is get a stick and a pad, and you're going pop, 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 and you think you're on beat because you can hear that you're on beat, but your ears aren't as attuned as your music teacher, so they're telling you that you're off, you're late, you're early, and then you're like, leave me alone, old man, you know. Um, and I partly blame this on 80s movies, I'm not gonna lie, because 80s movies gave us the training montage. So we get this idea that we're watching the montage and it all happens quickly, and we don't get the timestamp in the training montage of this was 6 months. This was 6 months of Rocky running every day, 6 months of one-handed push-ups, 6 months of working the bag. We don't get that. We get the length of a song and then him making it up to the top of the steps and jumping up and down and up and down. And I know Rocky came out in the 70s, but it was the first, and by the 80s, there was a training montage for every single thing that was essentially marketed to men. So we're talking sports movies, war movies, all that stuff. Okay, there's even a montage in Predator, you know, where it looks like it takes them 10 minutes to set up 18 booby traps, weave a net out of vines, and then put, I mean, seriously. Where it's like, you know what? No, they started in the morning and they finished in the late afternoon, and there were 10 of them. So this stuff is hard. All right. So the question is, how do we teach people the basics of the game, whatever game that we're trying to teach them, and keep them interested? Okay, keep them interested in playing. All right. And the biggest thing about Rocky does a pretty good job showing the passage of time during the montage, but my point stands. Thank you. you know, but what was how do we teach them in these games? Okay, I think Neon is hungry. He's just going on about all this. He's just going through every fact. And yeah, these are bum pops, and these are orange creams. Tyranids are orange creamsicles, and man, ice cream sounds really good right now. I know it's 1,000,000,000 degrees in here right now, and someone's like, "How do you keep going?" And I'm like, "Magic and paper towels." Uh, Really? I wouldn't have guessed. I'm overheated and I want ice cream. I wouldn't have guessed. You know, of course, who am I to talk? I've got like 4 gallons of ice cream in the freezer in the house. Um, so how do we teach these games and keep them interested? And the big thing, like when you're teaching a tabletop war game, one of the things that you can do, and this is something that I've done, is um, you give someone Timmy bait. And when I say Timmy bait, I mean give them something cool. Give them something that either plays cool, that doesn't have a lot of rules, Space Marines, or you give them something that looks cool, has a couple of different rules, but isn't like overpowered. Things like dreadnoughts, giant spiders, anything that comes on like a 60 to 100 millimeter base, you know? Uh, that way, it turns the thing from a strategic game like chess where there are winners and losers and you must make the right move in order to prove your intelligence to pew pew, I'm playing with toys. Okay? Because people are like, well, I gotta win. I gotta be out there. I gotta be number one. And it shifts their head from I gotta win to, hey, He-Man, and it's Skeletor. I'll get you this time, He-Man. I'm sorry, Skeletor. I mean, it takes that person back to childhood, and the back parts of their brain meets. You know, and I've talked to a lot of people, and I've taught a lot, and I mean a lot of hard playing zero sum gamers, and I've taught them some games. Like I was playing HeroClix. I talked about this a bit yesterday. I played a game of HeroClix with Mad Wookie, and this was when a great version of the Incredible Hulk came out, and he loves the Hulk. He is like Hulk smash, everything. And this guy was just like, you don't need to know how to play HeroClix to keep up with what I'm saying, okay? This guy essentially got stronger every time you did anything to him. If you hit him, he got stronger. If he swung at you and missed, he got stronger. If you turned off his superpowers, he got stronger. I think Eons of Battle call certain guns in 40k point and delete weapons. And the more that you did to protect yourself from the Hulk, the more he became a point and delete character. And I played a theme team of the Doom Patrol. So it was Marvel versus DC, and it was the Doom Patrol. Who are those guys? Versus Hulk Smash. And I won the game. And he was pretty tilted on that one because it's the Hulk, and in his head canon, Hulk smashes everything. It's almost like people who want to play games as Superman know that Superman can beat everything, so when Superman loses, it's like, nuh-uh. But when I taught him how to play Grimdark Future from One Page Rules, and him coming from 40k, I kept everything light, and I kept it within toys. And of course, going from 40k to any other game is kind of a step down because, oh my god, the crunch. I would say except for classic Battletech from FASA Pro. Yeah, that's a reach back. That game is older than a lot of people who use the internet. Matter of fact, that game has been gone. Specifically the one from FASA Pro. That game has been gone for a lot longer than a lot of people who use the internet have been alive. But it was a lot of math. A whole lot of math. And hang on. So when it came down to that particular thing, I could give him a good amount of the rules from Grimdark Future, but he was still playing 40k in his head. And this is a big thing because he tried to make a named character, and it took a lot of points. And it got taken down by numbers and math because it's a simple game that's lightweight and streamed down. And I'm like, dude, this isn't 40k. This is the essence of 40k gameplay, not 40k lore. All right? And this brings me into the next subject. See, there was a reason I told that story, and that is lore versus gameplay. Now, I'm noticing something as a Warhammer 40K player, or as a new player to the hobby, or to Warhammer 40K, and that is I'm not getting caught up in that lore thing because I've read comic books all my life. And you know what comic books have that, well, comic books used to have this the most in anything I've ever seen until I became an adult and started studying politics. But outside of American politics, comic books, i.e., fictitious lore, has more hyperbole than anything else I've seen outside of American politics. Okay? And what do I mean by that? I mean, the Green Lantern's ring is the most powerful weapon in the universe. But the Witchblade is the most powerful weapon in the universe. But the Power Cosmic is the most powerful force in the universe. Except for the Ultimate Nullifier, which is the most powerful thing in the universe. And then you've got He-Man, the most powerful man in the universe. I mean, everything is the most powerful thing in the universe. And when you get caught up in that lore, whatever you read is the most powerful thing in the universe. If your heart gets set on that, then when it loses, then there's a thing that goes off in the mind that goes, wait, but I had the most powerful thing in the universe, you know? And again, if you guys are 40K players, HeroClix players, comic readers, into lore and all that stuff, talk to me about this. Let me know if I'm wrong, all right? But like I said, I've read comics my whole life, and between the Power Cosmic, the Green Lantern ring, the Witchblade, the Ultimate Nullifier, the Space Marines, the Tyranids, the Emperor of Mankind, the only piece of 40K lore that I can say doesn't seem to be hyperbolic is that Big E, the Emperor of the Mankind, is the most terrible dad in the universe. I mean, seriously, this guy is terrible. But that's about it, okay? So when you're teaching people games, all right? When I say break everything down to the essence of the game, I mean the essence of gameplay, not the essence of the lore, not the essence of the story. But what is this game? This game is pew pew stab stab. Okay, that is the underlying thing of the game. Now, the game behind the game is what are the mechanics designed for? And that means in blackjack, it's not getting 21. It's just making sure that the dealer loses and you don't. In 40K, it's a dice game. It's a dice game while you play with your toy soldiers. Okay, those are the two places that it goes. All right. And the thing is, it's more a dice game than anything. But Solar, what are you talking about? What makes you the authority? It's a real simple question. Which of those two things can you cut out and still play the game? Now, I've played at least a dozen different tabletop miniatures games, and I can tell you this. I've played those miniatures games with coins, green toy soldiers, just the bases because I hadn't glued the miniatures together. But I've never been able to play those games without dice. Okay? Like, real talk, guys. I mean, the best of the games, like 40K and Grimdark Future and HeroClix and Marvel Crisis Protocol, and from what I hear, Star Wars Legion, it's a good fusion of the minis and the dice because the experience lets you focus more on the minis and where they are on the board and where the placement is and all that stuff. And you're not living under the tyranny of the dice rolls, but you are living under the stories that the dice tell. But at the end of the game, at the end of the day, it's playing dice. But that's the game behind the game. All right? But the essence of the game, pew pew, stab stab, my toy does this to your toy. And when you can get to the essence of gameplay, you can look at the stripped down version of how to play the game with its most basic components. It's Ken and Ryu. It's chocolate and vanilla. For Warhammer 40k 10th edition, right now, chocolate and vanilla are Tyranids and Space Marines because that's what's in the starter box. And make no mistake, y'all, when these companies publish starter boxes, they always give you the chocolate and the vanilla. They always give you the things that are easiest to comprehend before sprinkling all these different spices and toppings. You know, yeah, you got your chocolate, you got your vanilla with the Space Marines and the Tyranids. Now, do you want to add a few nuts with objective control, a few sprinkles, you know, with board conditions? Do you want to bring it on into narrative games? That's a whole banana split with all these different flavors. You can do that after chocolate and vanilla, after you get the base ice cream down, you know. Yeah, they were. Because let's see, Neon Arlecchino is saying for a while GW was making starter boxes with required units and ones that were selling badly. It's true, they were, because they're an evil corporation. And go ahead, fight at me at it. I don't care. But yeah, so when you get the essence of the things down, that is where the game exists. And then everything on top of that is flavor. It's fluff. And make no mistake, okay? I had steak for dinner last night. I love steak, okay? I love steak, salt, pepper, butter, love steak, all right? But, yeah, thank you, Xanathe. It's Evil Corporation, he says, as though there's any other kind. But that's for our meeting later on tonight down by the docks, all right? So, with all that, though, I do got to say, you know, it gets down to teach them how to do the most basic of things. And if they're really smart or if they're experienced gamers, and what I mean by that is if they have a background playing a lot of other games or any other game a lot, like Magic the Gathering, D&D, Vampire the Masquerade, if they're any board game like Zombicide or Settlers of Catan, you know, if they understand that dice or randomization mechanic, and that you can have the perfect plan and still roll badly, then you can add a little more sprinkles and spice. You know, you can add a little basil to that steak. You can add a little, you know, you can add some rice to that steak. Okay, but when it comes down to playing a game for the first time, like let's take 40k for example, I never recommend starting with the Sisters of Battle. And when it comes to Grimdark Future, I never recommend starting with the Blessed Sister, not with someone who has never played a game, because there's so many tiny little things that you have to do to make them viable. There's so much synergy that you have to know this, and how it works with that. Like, it's all combos, you know, and you can't quite get the combos. Hey, what's going on? Knowing nobody, thanks for coming in. So yeah, and this is something that I have been practicing since 2005. Okay, and this is where I see people who teach games really dropping the ball. And back in the earlier days, it was boyfriends trying to teach their girlfriends, and all they would do is try and teach their girlfriends combos without making sure that their girlfriends understood the basics of the game. Okay, and what happened? The girlfriends don't want to play not just that game, but any game anymore, let alone any game with their significant other. And this is a direct reflection of what I was talking about earlier, about how some players aren't very good teachers, and they want the person they're teaching to hurry up and get good so that they can play at the level that they are used to playing at. Okay? Now I'll let you guys know this. I fell into that trap for a little while. Um, because I overestimated what a lot of my players were taking in, and I was recovering from being not a whack player, but a hard player. Okay. In War Machine, the major tactic was fight, 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 get things in position, blow your feet, and win the game. And um, that was the only tactic I knew how to play. And they kept saying, "Don't take it easy on me. I can tell that you're taking it easy." And I would do that, and they would get frustrated and all this other stuff. It was just terrible. All right, I don't do that anymore. Um, like for tonight, I had 3 people lined up, so that means 2 of us could play with combat patrols at the same time, and I am there. I am all the way there. However, one of them was like, "I may not be able to make it." And I'm like, "Okay, sure, you might not be able to make it. That's fine. I'm gonna do your thing." Um, I let them know three is what I require. I can make it work with 1, because if you're going to teach someone a game, and you can teach them in steps, and you can learn in steps, all right. Um, when you're teaching the basics, this is how to move, this is how to target, this is how to shoot, this is how to charge, this is how to calculate how you can do the thing you're thinking about doing. If you've got not a number of people, if you have 2 people with no experience and you're trying to teach those 2 people, you can teach them by having them play each other. Not you. Not you. All right? Have them play each other. Now, if you have 1 person that's there, yeah, they play you. And you have to limit your gameplay to just the basics. Okay? And once they get that, then you can start adding a few sprinkles. But if you give them a scientifically engineered Michelin star level recipe to eat for the first time, they won't know what they're eating, and their baseline will be that. Okay? And this is why we learn in steps. If you have children, or if you are a teacher, or if you can remember all the way to kindergarten and preschool, you might remember something called primers. Okay? We make fun of them, but the most famous primer is the reading primer, See Spot Run. Run, dog, run. Okay? But here's the thing. That gets the child's eye used to looking at words and equating them with things they already know. And skipping See Spot Run, Run, dog, run makes it very hard to pick up when in the course of human events, or oft have I dug dead men from their graves and set them upright on their best friend's door, even when their sorrows almost was forgot. You know, between Shakespeare and See Spot Run, there's a big gap. But you don't go from See Spot Run, Run, dog, run, to Alas, poor Yorick, I knew him, Horatio, a man of infinite jest and excellent fancy, and infinite fancy. You know, you don't. You don't jump from one place to another. You got to build up in steps. You don't go from 1 + 1 = 2 to calculus in a day. In fact, that tends to take about 11 years. Unless you're in accelerated programs, in which case it takes about 9 years. All right? And what I see a lot, not just in games, but in so many different things, is people are used to skipping the basics. Okay? Warning, old man yells at cloud. Warning, most people drive, but less than 20% of people who drive know how an internal combustion engine works. Okay? There was a time where you learned how an engine worked in public school. It was called auto shop. All right? And If something went wrong with your car, you could fix it yourself because you knew how it worked. All right. When I learned how to do an oil change, I was happy because an oil change might cost $35, to buy the oil and the filter. And if you don't have the special wrench to take your filter off or to put it on properly, so you got to do all that stuff. But I learned how to do that because my motorcycle mechanic costs $85 an hour plus the $35 to buy the oil and all that stuff. You see what I mean? So to understand how it works is a really big important part when it comes to learning. Now, I'm sure a lot of you guys have watched this channel for a long time and you notice I deal in concepts, and this is why. Because if you understand the principle, you can figure out everything else on your own, okay? Or if you have a teacher to help you expand on the principles, you learn faster and more deeply, okay? So, when you're learning in steps, okay, my step one is always the principle. What is this game? What is the essence of this game? What is it that I'm actually trying to do here? And the answer is, I'm trying to pew, pew, stab, stab with my toy soldiers. All right. And that's what a lot of people want to do. They want to be like, hey, I want to take all these guys and I want to beat them off. And it's like, the essence of gameplay, especially of 10th edition 40K and a lot of other things, is objective control. You're supposed to sit firm on a part of the board saying, this is mine, and you can't have it. And, but a lot of new players, they don't care about that. They want to pew pew. They want to kill, maim, frag, destroy. And that's fine. So you teach them how to kill, maim, frag, destroy. Some of the best players I've ever seen in any of these games, they start with a small game, a 500-point game, a combat patrol, and they're like, screw objectives, let's just wipe each other off the board. A lot of games you can't do that with anymore because they've been designed to do this is mine and you can't have it, okay? But to teach all those things, to show how combat works and all that other stuff, you can teach them that. Tonight, I planned on teaching them movement, shooting, objective control, and the special abilities of the armies, okay, and the secondary objectives. Notice I didn't say anything about stratagems, okay, and the reason for that is every miniatures game that I've ever played, once you get those things down, you can have a good time. But I also understand that the stratagems in 40K, let's take a quick look at the ones from Combat Patrol. They tend to be there to answer a question that every player tends to ask, okay? And I like the fact that there's what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 11 stratagems in Combat Patrol versus the myriad of stratagems that there were. The biggest important ones. Combat reroll. I wish I could roll one of those dice again. And that comes along. Counteroffensive, epic challenge, insane bravery, Overwatch, smokescreen, go to ground. All these are good. I notice myself, okay, in myself, I know the stratagems that I learned just by watching battle reports were combat reroll, insane bravery, and Overwatch. And if I were to teach new players how to play this game, those would be the first ones I would show them. Why? Because, well, if they're charging at me, why can't I just shoot them? Aha, you can. And, oh, I wish I could re-roll that. Well, there's a way. And of course, insane bravery. I failed my battle shock test, and now I know that when I fail my battle shock test, I can't hold objectives. That sucks. Ah. But you can call them crazy, and they won't be battle shocked. It's the equivalent of slapping them in the face, saying, snap out of it, you know? And that's something that's really big and really useful. The other stratagems, yeah, they're there. They're there. Um, so yeah, that is a really big thing. Hang on. You can archive. Oh, that's nice. Um, yeah, sorry, I just noticed another stratagem and I'm like, oh, I have no idea how that would work. So that's not really one I would teach someone during a game, until I understood it. And that is the biggest thing I can give to you guys today. Okay, the biggest thing that I can give to you guys today is one of the major axioms of life, which is you cannot transmit what you haven't got. So if you're going to teach a game, you have to do a little bit more to understand it. Unless you are brand new and one of your friends is brand new and you guys are going through the rule book together. However, if you want to teach and play on the same day, somebody's got to do a little studying. Now, this gives a bit of a disadvantage in the sense of, well, the best way that I can equivocate this is party games. Like, about 20 years ago, there were a bunch of party games on video game systems. Y'all know them as things like Guitar Hero, Rock Band, stuff like that. And if you wanted to have a party where you and your friends got together at somebody's house to play these games, okay, you had two options. You could spend more money and buy a bunch more songs, or somebody could play the game and unlock them. However, by the time someone plays and unlocks all the games, that or all the songs, that person is better than everyone else in the room, which means that person can't play with as many people. I mean, they're literally subconsciously more competent. So if you're playing with that person, they're going to be a lot better than the newer players are, and that can cause a bunch of feel bad moments, which means somebody's got to become that guy. Now, if you're going to be the teacher, know that you are going to be that guy. So it's up to you to not play as hard as you can, to give them a chance to catch up, okay? And a lot of angry gamers, and I say angry because they have this mindset that's different from everything I was raised to believe, which is, since it was hard for me, it should be hard for everyone that comes behind me. And I was taught from a really, really young age that if it's hard for you, then you should make it easier for those who come behind you. Of course, I was raised by people that were born at the turn of the 20th century, so things may have changed, but I do know that people enjoy spending time with me a lot more. Because I try and help. I'm like, okay, let's see where you're falling short, and maybe we can handle this. What questions do you have? That kind of thing. And here's something that I want to put out for you guys. It's okay not to know when you're teaching. You're going to get some things incorrect. Okay, there are going to be some things that you're going to be incorrect about. Fortunately, Google is free, and we all have it. I know when I was talking with the owner of the guild house, about control points in this game, he thought that the unit had that score of control points, and I'm like, I think it's per model, because that would make things work really well. Because I was thinking about chump units, things like zombies or things like bow-carrying bird creatures, or regular old soldiers, all right? Not elite troops, I'm talking meat grinder units. I'm like, if they have command control points of 1, that means you put them on an objective and anybody can take them without having to wipe them off the board. That doesn't seem very fun. Like my unit of Imperial Guard is looking at this, and then a unit of Space Marines with control points 2 just comes and takes it from them. Just, we're here, you can't have it anymore. However, if it's per model, then my unit of 10 regular warriors versus my unit of 5 Space Marines, now it's contested until the Space Marine kills 1, and then the Space Marines take it. Or if the Space Marine kills 1 and the Imperial Guard have, say, a mortar and blow away 2 Space Marines with really good rolls, then they take it back. Now you got a game. Now you got a back and forth exchange where anybody can win versus I've shown up and you lose. That's what I was thinking. And then after about a week, I talked to him again, and he's like, everywhere I've seen it's command points per model. And we had that conversation, and it was cool. But he's the one that owns the game store, and he's been playing 40K for way longer than me. But I understood that part, and so the point that I'm making is whoever you're teaching will probably have a better understanding about a certain aspect of what you're teaching them than even you might. That's a good thing. Don't fall into the trap of I'm teaching them, therefore they know nothing, they understand nothing. And I'm teaching them, therefore I know everything. Now, you can't transmit what you haven't got. But there's also that zero-sum thinking of if I've got it, then the person I'm teaching must not have anything. That's not the way it works. Not in games, not in real life, If y'all got kids out there, back me up on this, because I learn a great deal from my kid, and always have. Even when my kid was 2 years old, I'm like, I didn't consider that. Oh, look at that. You see what I mean? I didn't quite get that. So take a lot of these things to heart. If over the next few days you end up teaching somebody, put some of these things to the test. Let me know if they work for you, if they don't, whether or not they work for you, I should say. But in my experience, these are the things that I have found work best and have given people the same passion for playing a lot of the games I love that I have. But let me know what you think, okay? You can do that by hitting that like, subscribe, and leaving a comment if you're watching on YouTube. Or you can hit me up by sending an email to backinthedeck@gmail.com. That's BACKINTHEDBECK@gmail.com. You can also hit me up on Twitter and Instagram. Also at Back in the Deck. You can hit me up on TikTok at BidP. You can subscribe to YouTube at BidP Blurred. And of course, if you're part of that wretched hive of scum and villainy known as Facebook, you can hit me up on Deckers on the Boat. Join the group, all that stuff. So, looks like our last comment of the show is from Xanathades. 100% are learning from my kids. We're just reflecting on whether the things I say or do are the lessons that I want to show them. Testify. I would get up and start dancing, but I'm not wanting to freaking embarrass myself. So, with all that, I gotta say thank you guys for tuning in. And remember, if anybody tells you that you can't play the games you want or read the books you like because of the circumstances of your birth, be it race, religion, creed, gender identity, sexual orientation, disability, neurodivergency, or your budget, I like to call it neurospice too, because we all know that anybody who lives in a trailer park is only walking distance from the hood. You can tell those people to take those cards and put them back in the deck. I'm Solar Gray, the Cinematic Sorcerer, saying thank you guys for joining me, and we will see you next time. on the dark side of the room.